So there was a Christian mission organization started in 1979 that's based here in Portland called Medical Teams International. Anybody ever hear of this group? Okay, they do amazing work. I called them up this last week and I said, hey, could someone give me like some quick stats on kind of what you've done over the years? And to the best of their estimations, they have served or touched or given a gift to or helped a little over 950 million people around the world. Over those years, they've had just about 60,000 volunteers, doctors, nurses, and other people help out. They've done incredible work. And the question is, how does an organization, how does any organization, but a Christian organization that's right here in Portland, have a ministry, a worldwide ministry that touches and helps that many people? How does it start? And the answer is, it started with one person. One person who said yes to God. And that one person behind Medical Teams International is Ron Post. Now, I first met Ron in 1979. He had amazing dedication and an amazing vision from God. He was watching the news in 1979 when on the national news there were pictures of what the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot was doing in Cambodia, the death and destruction. And hundreds of thousands of Cambodians had to flee the violence, and they headed towards the border of Thailand. And Thailand wasn't prepared to care for all of these refugees. And there were pictures from the refugee camps of so many people suffering and at the point of starvation and dying. And these images came across the news. And Ron, he was a Christian businessman who lived in Salem, like many of us, kind of watched that, and he was so shocked by those images. He said to himself out loud, ever talk to yourself out loud, ever say something just to like, okay? So he said to himself out loud, why doesn't somebody do something? And there was a voice who responded. A voice who said, well, why don't you do something, Ron? It wasn't the voice of God. It was the voice of his wife from the other room. Who some might say actually is the voice of God. But that's another sermon for another day, okay? So Ron prayed about that, and he took that to heart. He took that as a call from the Lord to take action in some way, to do something for these people who were in such horrible conditions. So the Lord gave him a plan. From his church down in Salem, he knew, in his congregation, he knew one doctor. He went to that doctor and said, hey, listen, if I could get some other doctors, and if I can raise the funds, would you go with me over there for a week to do what we can to help those people? And that doctor said yes. The word spread around. The word spread up to Lake Oswego, where I was serving at Our Savior's, and it just so happened that Ron's daughter was a part of our church because she was dating a young man. Those of you who remember John Shaw, remember the Shaws? Just so happened that she was there and was dating one of the young men in our church, and that's how we heard of his efforts, and that's when I first met Ron. And so we we let people know about this effort. We gave money to help with this effort, and one of the nurses from Our Saviors was actually on this first mission team that went to Cambodia. And, well, the rest is history, right? They did one trip, and then they did 2, and then they did 10 and 20, and over the years, more and more for people in need around the world. They also have a dental van that has served over 200,000 people in the Northwest. I mean, their ministry keeps growing and increasing because one follower of Jesus said yes. Yes, Lord, I'm willing to serve. I'm not sure how to do this, but something's got to be done, and so I'm willing to step forward to see what can happen, trusting in you. It is amazing when any of us, as followers of Jesus, have a willing heart when we say yes. Ron wasn't skilled in doing this kind of work. He didn't have any expertise in it, but he had a heart for God, and he had a heart for hurting people, and God said, I'll take whatever you can give me, and I will provide the rest. And Northwest Medical Teams initially, which was just a little effort kind of from some folks around the Portland area, ended up being an international mission. In fact, it changed from just being a Northwest thing to an international thing when they moved from Salem up to Portland. And in fact, when they did that, they asked us at Our Saviors to help with a fundraiser that was halfway between the two places at a new Holiday Inn that was being built in Wilsonville. And so, in a strange way, we're part of this work, supporting it and helping it move forward. So that's just one example, one story, one picture of what happens when any of us, with an open and a humble heart, believing, trusting in the Lord, say, yes, Lord, hey, I'll serve. It's a great example of this passage that we're going to be looking at today from Ephesians 3. Now, all glory to God, who is able, through his mighty power at work within us, to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. So if you would get out your study sheet today, follow along. I've got the scriptures that we're going to look at today. We're going to continue today talking about 5 things God uses to build our faith. And so we started a few weeks ago with practical teaching and providential opportunities. These 5 things, they're not a list in the Bible. They are my observations from 40 plus years of ministry, that as I listen to people's faith stories, one or more of these 5 factors God uses to help people put their faith in gear so that it becomes a living, vital resource and a blessing in their life and a blessing in other people's lives. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about practical teaching. When God's Word becomes alive, when it becomes more than just some words written on a page, when His truth is written in your hearts, God uses that to help people take a major step forward in faith. Last week, we talked about providential opportunities. When you begin to look at every relationship, every encounter with other people as an opportunity to bless them, God uses your willingness to serve as a way of helping your faith grow. Today, we're going to look at personal ministry. When you say yes to Jesus and use the gifts that God has given you to bless other people, that helps take faith forward, a major step in your life. So when we're talking about personal ministry, so if you were here, okay, here we go. How many people here were here 2 weeks ago when I talked about practical teaching? Okay, you remember the baseball diamond? Okay, all right. So personal ministry is third base. Remember how we talked about with the Bible, there's a first base that we all get to. And that's where we know what God says in His Word. That's the very first basic level step. But, when you get to first base, you need to move to second base, which is growing in God's Word. That means growing and understanding what it means. Third base is you move from knowing to growing to showing it through how you live. First base has to do with what your head knowledge. Second base has to do with your heart, passion. Third base has to do with how His Word comes alive and is shown through your hands, through your actions, through your behaviors as you serve others around you. The key verse we said a few weeks ago with third base is, give me understanding and I will obey your instructions. I will put them into practice. Through personal ministry, through getting involved, through saying, yes, Lord, I just don't want to have your word as something intellectual in my mind, but I want it to be real as I live every day, and it shows through what I do and how I speak. Personal ministry is what we do on third base. Some examples is what we talked about today, Medical Teams International. But there are so many examples of third base ministry in this congregation. Hey, our kids just got back from the Dominican Republic. Third base ministry is when you show God's love in real ways. Third base ministry, Royal Family Kids Camp, coming up in a few weeks. Putting God's love into action. Saying, yes, Lord. Hey, I don't know all of the details, but I will serve you. The Catalyst Project that we did last week and another one coming up in August is saying yes to Jesus and putting our faith into action. African Smile, the work that we do in Tanzania, all examples of putting God's Word into practice, people taking faith and putting it into practice in personal ministry, and then personally spending time getting involved and making a difference in the world around us. Now, there's two key verses that I want to talk about today about the power of personal ministry. One is this. It's from Ephesians 2, and I've got these verses written down on your sheet. Paul says, for it is by God's grace that you've been saved through faith. It's not the result of your own efforts, but it's God's what? Gift. We're talking about that today, God's gift. Incredible gifts God gives us. So many. And the gift of life and forgiveness and salvation, God says, hey, I love you and I want you to have it. We respond by our faith in believing and trusting in Jesus Christ. That's what Paul's saying here. First base is learning about that, knowing it. Second base is responding through faith. The question is, saved for what purpose? We're saved through grace by our faith. Saved for what? Saved to get, Paul would say it using our baseball example, to get to third base. And third base is what he talks about in the next verse. For God has made us what we are, and in our union with Jesus Christ, He has created us. That means our purpose is a life of good deeds. That's third base, where we put our faith into action, where we say yes, and it shows through what we do each and every day as we serve the Lord and serve other people. And He's prepared us to do this. He's given us what we need, and we can trust in that. Now, if this seems a little daunting, if this seems causes a little tension, if this is like, well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if I've got the time. I'm not sure I've got what it takes. That's a natural reaction to hearing God call you to get involved in personal ministry for His kingdom. And the reassurance for any of us who say yes to Jesus is that verse from Ephesians 3. So don't worry, because God, who is able, through His mighty power, who's at work within us, He can accomplish infinitely far more than what we might think or ask. When you say yes, God will provide the rest of what He's asked you to do. We simply need to have an open, willing heart to take that step forward and keep trusting in the Lord. Now, there's a story that from Jesus' life that's the example of all of this, the example of what happens when you say yes to Jesus, when you're willing to be, to take that step of personal ministry and follow what Jesus says. And it's the story in Matthew 14 of the feeding of the 5,000. And I've got that written on your sheet, but if you want to look it up in your Bible, Matthew 14, it begins like this. Now, this story takes place kind of in the second year of Jesus' ministry. Everybody knows who he is. Wherever he goes, people, thousands of people start coming out to see Jesus, to hear Jesus, to be blessed by Jesus. And that's what happens as the story begins. So when Jesus got out of the boat, he saw the large crowd. His heart was filled with pity, and he began to heal the sick. And people stayed, and more people came, and more people stayed. So in the next verse, this is what we read. That evening, his disciples came to him and said, hey, it's already very late, and this is a lonely place. Code for there's not a lot of restaurants, fast food places around here. Not a lot of Jimmy John's, Subways. So send the people away and let them go to their villages to buy food for themselves. That is a very logical, practical look at the situation that we're in. We've got 5,000 people here. We're out in the middle of nowhere. It's late. They're hungry. So, Jesus, it's time to shut this down. They need to go. This is what Jesus says in response to that. Okay? They don't need to leave. But you yourselves, give them something to eat. And they said, well, okay, all we have here are 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Now, Jesus knew that they didn't have a giant supply of food. Jesus knew that there was incredibly little. And the whole purpose of this little back and forth at this point is to help the disciples get to the point of saying, hey, we can't do this. By ourselves, we can't do this. By ourselves, we don't have enough of what it takes to do what you've asked. And Jesus says, in his own mind, thank you for coming to that realization. So, in the next verse, bring them here to me. Bring the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Bring me whatever you've got. Just bring it to me. Now, I always, when I read a story like this, I always like to put myself in the story. Ever do that? Okay. So I'm imagining being one of the disciples. I mean, we know how the story ends, but I'm just imagining it unfold. I'm standing there, and it's like, all right, you want this? I mean, Jesus, these people are hungry, and you're going to eat in front of them? I mean, it's kind of rude, isn't it? I mean, that's what I would think. I mean, what are you going to do? So this is what happens next. So he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, gave thanks to God, and he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the people. And you got to be a little math wizard here. Okay, you got 5 loaves and 2 fish. You got 5. Okay, you got to divide to 5, 12 ways. So everybody gets a 5/12 of a loaf. Okay, and the fish, okay, you divvy them up, but somehow everybody got something. And Jesus said, just go out and serve them. And about that time, they're thinking, this is not going to work. But okay, all right. And you know the rest of the story. Jesus miraculously